Welcome. In this presentation, we will see how the team of experts, and in particular the social expert, is expected to reply to the question, is the VCA4D socially sustainable within the VCA4D methodological framework? The social analysis complements the VCA4D methodological framework by bringing qualitative information to a mainly quantitative toolkit. For the social analysis, VCA4D, differently from the other analyses, has constructed a new methodological tool called the social profile. So the social analysis is not based as such on an existing method of analysis as, for example, the LCA method. This helps to keep the analysis focused and limited to the scope of the value chain, and helps policymakers in making decisions on operations. The purpose of the social analysis is to assess the established and potential consequences, be them benefits or disadvantages, of value chains operations. The social expert put under his lens of his/her analysis in particular 6 domains, which are working conditions, land and water rights, gender equality, food and nutrition security, social capital, and living conditions. These 6 domains are to be taken into account by policymakers when they take decisions on the value chains, and therefore information upon them is key. While it is very important for the social expert to have a good understanding of the societal context of a country, her role, it is actually to focus on the interactions of the value chain operations with the 6 domain of analysis. Depending on the type of value chain you're working on, so be it a small or big value chain, a national value chain or an exporting one, we appreciate that it can be more or less easy to discern and differentiate the general situation from the value chain operations. Yet, this is the bulk of the work of the social expert, to help to clarify these interactions between the value chain and the societal context, and clarify the situation. To help you, you can, for example, use comparisons and compare 2 regions, one in which the value chain is very active with one when you barely have any activity for the value chain. The more we know about how to discern the societal context from the value chain operation, if there are any difference, the better for the policymakers to take decisions. Also for the social analysis, VCA4D follows the same structure. So we have a framing question, is the value chain socially sustainable? And then we have a series of core questions. And for the social analysis, we have 6 core questions, each of them relating to one of the 6 domains of analysis. Of course, the reply to the main framing question is not a yes or no reply, but we want to know which are the main key positive points of the value chains, or the one that policymakers should be looking upon to strengthen the social sustainability of the value chain. This is a very important slide because here we give you some recommendation on how to make let's say, good social analysis from a VCA4D perspective. The first recommendation is, whenever relevant and whenever possible, to use the same typology of actors as the rest of the team, also for structuring the social analysis. This means that you can also make further aggregation or disaggregation. For example, you can focus on specific vulnerable groups or a specific type of actor, and this will help to understand the benefits or disadvantages created by the value chain. In any case, using the same typology of actor throughout the full report will enable to read the results throughout the different types of analysis. So it's very useful for the readers and the policymakers. Another key recommendation is to go in the analysis in writing beyond the score that you have in each domain of the social profile. You're asked, in fact, to only produce one social profile for each value chain, but you can have differences between the types of actors or between different regions of productions. So this is the key information that is interesting for policymakers, because you might want to pinpoint that actually policymakers should act differently and tailor their action differently according to the type of actors or according, for example, to geographical regions. Also, you can have, for example, a quite good score for a social domain, working condition, for example, but some of the questions might be scored in red, so with a particularly critical situation. So this might be averaged out in the score, but is very important to be highlighted in writing for the social analysis, because it means that the policymaker should pay specific attention when structuring a policy or a project. We said this already, but it's important to repeat it. It is important to try to discern the societal context from the VCA specific one. We know that there are problems of attributions, in particular when the value chain is relatively small, but any attempt that you can make can provide interesting information. And then the social analysis is finally the part where also you might not be able to totally discern the value chain and the territory where the activity are taking place. So you can add some elements of territorial analysis and complement the quantitative analysis. An example is, for example, on inclusiveness and how to complement the economic analysis. We enter now into the social profile, so the tool that VCA4D constructed to support the social analysis. As we said, the social profile is divided in 6 domains: working conditions, land and water rights, gender equality, food and nutrition security, social capital, and living conditions. Each of the 6 domains is divided in several subdomains. And in this slide, and then in the VCA4D methodological brief, you have the full list of the subdomains. The process of work of the social expert can be summarized in 4 main steps. The first is to address the question of the social profile, try to read them, understand them, and see if they are applicable or not to your case. You have to bear in mind that the social profile with the 63 question was built to be applied to each value chain in all country. So it might be possible that some of the questions might not be relevant for your case and may be overlooked. And it might also be possible that you may want to address in your social analysis some questions that are not taken into account by the social profile. The second step is to collect data and information. And here VCA4D is not prescriptive, so it is the job of the social expert to see which are the sources and the methods that you consider more appropriate, considering the country and the value chain, to collect the wanted information. The third step is then to provide a score to the questions, as we said, maybe not all the questions, and this will help you to build the picture of the social profile, so the social profile radar chart. The last and most important step is then to make the analysis, so summarizing the finding per domain and all together, and to deliver a comprehensive and explanatory presentation of the social benefits and sustainability. Working with the social profile means that the social expert is asked to put a score to a set of 63 questions and to assess the risk, so the likelihood and impact of a certain situation. And you have 5 different possibilities of a scoring scale. High when the situation is highly positive, substantial when it's substantially positive, moderate low when it's moderately low positive, and low not at all when it's not at all positive. So you go from green positive to low very negative situation. You also have the NA, non-applicable, not available option. It means that either the question is not applicable to your case, as we discussed, or when you cannot make an informed score, so you decide not to reply. So the social profile will then make a compounded average to the questions and then to the subdomains and to the domains to give a global radar chart of the social profile. In this slide, we start to see finally the social profile. The social profile is a simple Excel spreadsheet which has 4 different sheets. One is called Profile, Register, Questionnaire, and Guidance. The first one that you are asked to reply to, where you should start from, is the one called Questionnaires, where you have the list of the 63 questions divided by domain and subdomain. I want to make an important point here, so pay attention to me for 1 second. The social profile is not there to limit you, but is there to support you, is a sort of checklist of what are the topics that can be important for policymakers to be informed on so that they can take action if relevant. The social profile is not there to limit you. So this means that the question may be formulated in a way that is not completely applicable to your value chain. This is not a problem. The important thing is that in the end, we have an idea of what are the critical points and what are the critical opportunities of the value chain. Always remember, the social profile was built to be applied for every single value chain, for every single country, so it might not be formulated in a good way for your specific value chain, but this should not limit you. What we also see here is that we have underscored in red the source. So the source, we didn't list specific sources. It is for the social expert to identify which is the best source to inform the question. For example, it might be a report, it might be interviews with key informants, it might be focus groups, etc. So you are the one that is best placed to say which source is the most important. What we ask you to do is actually to complete it, because as you know, the idea of VCA4D is to go back in a few years in the country to see how the situation has evolved. So it is important to know how you informed the question so that you or the next social expert that will work on the same value chain can actually see which sources have been used to inform the question. As you see highlighted in red, you also have average. So you can see that you can select the score for each of the questions. So here we selected high, substantial, moderate, low, and not at all and not applicable, just to show the different scoring options. You can also change manually the average. For example, you can say, okay, I scored in this way, but I don't think this actually well represents the situation in the value chain as I analyzed it. So for example, you can change it and put moderate low to say, look, this is a situation that policymakers should pay attention to. But then, if you do this, we ask you, we don't see it in the slide, but you will see it in the social profile, to add a justification. There we go. Here you can see, better highlighted in red, that you can add a justification if you modify your average score. And then you have also on the top the place where to make comments. So you can actually insert a reply to each of the questions. We will read them and we will actually include all those answers in the information system. But of course, this might be different from the text that you will have in the social analysis, which will be more narrative. So you have these sort of questions for all of the 6 domains. As I repeat, working conditions, land and water rights, gender equality, food and nutrition security, social capital, and living conditions. So you can go through the full list, and then if you have some specific questions that you would like to discuss, we can do this during the briefing itself. So now we go at the level of the register sheet. As you remember, I said we have the profile sheet, the register sheet, the questionnaire, and the guidance. So we looked at the questionnaire, and now we go at the register sheet. And here it provides you already with an opportunity for synthesis, because as you can see, I think at your right hand side, you have a summary of the domain and then of the subdomains. So we don't see the questions anymore, and we only see the average score for each of the subdomain. And then we have some opportunities actually to highlight the major risks and opportunities for the value chain, to highlight what are the potential mitigating measures for each of the subdomains. You also have an opportunity to insert comments, and then, as you can see on your left, you also have a previous score. This will be important for the moment if you are working on a new value chain. So if you're making the first value chain analysis, everything will be in red because nothing has been completed from the previous analysis. If you are performing an update of the analysis, there you will see the scores of your previous analysis, and then you can appreciate whether the situation has been evolving positively or degrading. When you have worked at the level of your questionnaire and also analyze what happened at the register level, we can now take a look at the first page of the profile. In this page, you have a radar chart that summarizes the scores for each of the 6 domains. So you have a further level of synthesis of what is the situation at the social level. Here, you don't see what happens at the level of the subdomains, you don't see what happens at the level of the questions, you only see what happens at the level of the domain. If you have performed previous analysis, you can see the score of this previous analysis and also the trends. If it's the first time that you are undertaking a value chain analysis in that country and in that value chain, that will not be relevant, of course. We don't see it here in the slide, but in the social profile, you also have the space to add overall recommendations for the value chain, to pinpoint the major issues, the risks and costs of non-intervention versus the benefits, and also the key mitigating measures. So this will be, as I said, the basis for your social analysis and the support, the checklist, and not the prison of your social analysis. It is very important. You can use smartly the social profile to actually give depth to your analysis and pinpoint the strength, risks, opportunity, problems, and issues that the social expert would like to further analyze and that would like to bring to the attention of the policymaker. As we have been highlighting throughout all our presentations, multidisciplinarity is a key feature for VCA4D and thus also for the social analysis. There are two key points in which the social analysis interacts with other analyses, and we invite thus to strongly cooperate with the rest of the team to reply to these questions. The first one is with the economist, and to reply to the framing question 2 on inclusiveness. Is this economic growth inclusive? And the second one is in cooperation with the environmental experts on 2 points. First, the LCA experts is analyzing the impacts of the value chain on human health, but the social expert is invited to qualitatively assess the health hazards, especially in the part of the social profile on working conditions. Then on biodiversity, both the environmental and the social expert, they should work together to reply to the identification of practices and perspectives and to inventory of actions and policies. To summarize the main expected deliverables from the social expert is expected to provide a social analysis, an analysis on the social sustainability of the value chain, that will be included in the VCA4D final report. This analysis will be based on a completed social profile. And then the social expert is also expected to contribute to the functional analysis, and in particular, for examples, to the questions on coordinations, social capitals, and on the typology of actors, to the executive summary, and will work with the rest of the team to reply to all the framing questions, and in particular to the questions of inclusiveness and on social sustainability. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation, and I invite you to read the list of the 63 questions of the social profile before the briefing. And so if you need any further clarification on the question, you can either check the guidance that is in the Excel sheet, and we can also discuss this together. Looking forward to see you. Bye.